All right, today we're diving into a really landmark book by the one and only Carl Sagan. It's called The Demon-Haunted World, and it was published way back in 1995. Now, you might be thinking, why a book from the 90s? Well, it's this incredibly powerful case for why we all need to think critically and skeptically. And believe me, it has never been more relevant than it is right now.
You know, the subtitle of the book really says it all. Science as a candle in the dark. And that's such a perfect metaphor, right? For Sagan, science wasn't just, a bunch of boring facts in a textbook. It was a way of thinking. It's like this little candle that we can all hold, something to help us navigate through all the darkness of superstition, pseudoscience, and just all the bogus claims we see everywhere. But what exactly are the demons he was warning us about? He wasn't talking about, actual monsters with horns. Nope. The demons he meant are those ideas that sound so tempting, so convincing, but the second you take a closer look, they just fall apart. And to show us exactly what he meant, he came up with this absolutely brilliant little story.
Okay, so this is probably the most famous bit from the entire book. It's a really simple story, but man, it just perfectly nails the problem with claims that you can't actually test. It all kicks off with this really wild, out-there statement. So imagine your friend turns to you, completely serious, and says this. You'd be stunned, right? Your first thought would be, okay, you gotta show me. You'd want to see the proof. And that's where the fun really begins.
So you say, let's see it, and your friend says, oh, well, I forgot to mention it's an invisible dragon. Okay, right. So the claim immediately changes to dodge the most basic, obvious test. But hey, you're a smart cookie. You're a skeptic. You're not giving up that easily. So you think, aha, I've got it. You suggest sprinkling flour all over the garage floor to catch its footprints. Super clever, right? But nope, your friend comes right back with, well, this dragon, it floats. Do you see what's happening here? Every single time you come up with a test, the story just changes to get around it.
Okay, one last try. You think, a fire-breathing dragon has to give off heat, right? So you propose bringing in an infrared sensor to detect it. But you guessed it, you're blocked again. Your friend just calmly explains that the dragon's invisible fire is also heatless. At this point, every single attempt to prove it's real is just met with another special excuse.
And this is Sagan's big punchline. This is the whole point. A claim that can't be tested, a claim that can't be proven false no matter what you do, is basically meaningless. Just because you can't disprove there's a dragon, that doesn't mean you've proven there is one. So, how do we arm ourselves against these kinds of invisible, floating, heatless dragons in our own lives?
Well, that brings us to Sagan's absolutely genius solution. He created a practical set of tools for thinking, and he gave it the best name ever, the Baloney Detection Kit. I love that. It's basically a guide to help any of us build a solid argument, and, maybe even more importantly, spot when someone else's argument is full of, well, baloney. So, let's break down some of the tools in this kit. The first few are all about being rigorous. You gotta look for independent confirmation of the facts. You should encourage real, honest debate. And, this is a big one, don't just blindly trust arguments from authority. I mean, experts can be wrong too, right? Then you've got these next few, which are so important for keeping ourselves honest. Always think of more than one possible explanation. And maybe the hardest one of all, don't get too attached to your own ideas. In fact, you should actively try to prove your favorite hypothesis wrong. That's what being a real skeptic is all about. And the last few tools are just as critical. First, make sure every single link in the chain of an argument is solid. If just one part is weak, the whole thing collapses. Then there's Occam's razor, which is just a fancy way of saying that the simplest explanation, the one with the fewest new assumptions, is usually the best one to start with. And finally, number 9, well, it brings us full circle, right back to that dragon in the garage. You have to ask, can this idea be proven false? Is there any conceivable test that could show it's wrong? If the answer is no, then as Sagan would say, it's probably not worth your time.
But the Baloney Detection Kit isn't just about what you should do. It's not just a list of do's. It's also about spotting the don'ts, the common traps and tricks and arguments that are designed to mislead you. We call these logical fallacies, and they're basically just bad arguments that people use, sometimes on purpose, to win a debate.
Okay, here's a classic you see literally everywhere, especially on the internet, the ad hominem attack. It's Latin for to the person, and it's exactly what it sounds like. Instead of dealing with the actual argument, you just attack the person making it. Like, oh, you can't trust his opinion on climate change, he drives an SUV. See? It totally ignores the argument and just goes after the person. It's a cheap shot. not a real discussion.
Now this one is huge, confusing correlation with causation. Just because two things happen around the same time doesn't mean one caused the other. The classic example is that ice cream sales and shark attacks both increase in the summer. Does that mean buying a vanilla cone makes you more likely to get bitten by a shark? Of course not. There's a third thing, the hot weather, that causes more people to buy ice cream and more people to go swimming. It's a super common mistake to make. All right, next up is the straw man argument. This is where, instead of arguing against your opponent's actual position, you build a weaker, twisted version of it, a straw man, and then you knock that down instead. So if someone says, hey, maybe we should fund libraries more, the straw man response is, so you want to bankrupt the city by throwing all our money at books? It's totally dishonest because you're not even talking about the real argument anymore. So, okay, why does all this matter today? Why are we digging up a book from the mid-90s? Well, it's because every single problem Sagan warned us about has basically been put on steroids in the age of the internet. Those demons of misinformation and bad arguments, they're not just haunting us, they're in our pockets, on our screens 24/7. I mean, just think about it for a second. This book was written in 1995. That's before most of us had the internet at home. It was before social media, before the term fake news was a thing, before algorithms started deciding what information we see. Sagan saw where we were heading. He was sounding the alarm about a future that is now our present. And people have noticed. There was this review in The Verge back in 2017 that pointed to a specific passage in the book, and they described it as chillingly prescient, because Sagan basically laid out a future America where we'd be drowning in information, but we'd have a really hard time telling what's true from what feels good. And he said that in that world, the ability to think critically wouldn't just be a nice skill to have, it would be essential for survival.
And that's really the bottom line here. The baloney detection kit, this whole way of thinking, it's not some dusty academic thing. It is a practical, must-have, everyday tool for getting by in the world we live in now. It's how you navigate the news, your social media feed. It helps you become a better citizen, a smarter consumer, just a clearer thinker all around.
And really, that's the amazing legacy of the demon-haunted world. It's not just a book, it's an invitation. An invitation to stay curious, to always ask questions, and to demand good evidence. It's about empowering every single one of us to light our own little candle in the dark. So the question for you is, what dragons are you going to go out and test today?